Now I'd like to recognize the distinguished ranking member, Mr. Cummings, for his opening statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And this is a very important hearing. And we're here today because foreign cyber spies are targeting millions of our federal workers. OPM has made it clear that every month there are 10 million efforts to pierce our cyber space. These folks are hacking into our data system to get information about our employees, private information about them, their families, their friends, and all of their acquaintances. And they may try to use that information in their espionage efforts against United States personnel and technologies. Mr. Chairman, I want to start by thanking you. Last week, we held a hearing on cyber attacks against OPM. And this week, we have an opportunity to hear from OPM's 2 contractors that also suffered major data breaches, USIS and Keypoint. Some people in your shoes might have merely criticized the agency without looking at the whole picture. But you agreed to my request to bring in the contractors, and you deserve credit for that, and I thank you. On Monday night, I received a letter from USIS, its representatives finally providing answers to questions I asked more than 7 months ago, Mr. Giannetti. 7 months ago. 7 months ago. Their letter disclosed that the breach at USIS affected not only DHS employees, but our immigration agencies, our intelligence community, and even our police officers here on Capitol Hill. But it took them 7 months, the night before the hearing, to give me that information. But not only to give me the information, but members of Congress that information. My immediate concern was for the employees at these agencies, and I hope that they were all alerted promptly. But there is no doubt in my mind that USIS officials never would have provided that information unless they were called here to testify today. So I thank you again, Mr. Chairman. I have some difficult questions for USIS. I want to know why this company paid millions of dollars in bonuses to its top executives after the Justice Department brought suit against the company for allegedly defrauding the American taxpayers of hundreds of millions of dollars. I can hardly wait for the answer. I want to know why USIS used these funds for bonuses instead of investing in adequate cybersecurity protections for highly sensitive information our nation entrusted to it. Mr. Giannetti, I want to know if you, as the Chief Information Officer of USIS, received one of those bonuses. And I'd love to know how much it was and what the justification for it was. I understand that you just returned from Italy. Welcome back. So this is probably the last place you want to be. I also understand you are leaving the company in a matter of weeks.
Federal News Radio conducted an online survey about the data breach. You probably are aware of this. One of the questions asked the respondents was to rate OPM's communication with current and former federal employees about the data breach. The results showed that 78% of the respondents rated that OPM's communication as poor. An additional 12% rated it as fair. Only 3% described it as good, and less than 1% said it was excellent. I appreciate the fact that you want to improve that. We expect you to make sure that who you've contracted with it improves that.
Those numbers don't make me happy, sir, and
Those
I'm going
are
to do
terrible
everything
numbers.
I can to make sure that we're doing everything for our employees. I care deeply about our employees.
Some news reports indicate that attackers may now be in possession of the personal file of every federal employee, every federal retiree, and up to 1 million former federal employees. If true, that means the hackers have every affected person's Social Security number, address, date of birth, job, and pay history, and more that could be there. For years, we've been hearing about the risk of a cyber Pearl Harbor. Is this a cyber Pearl Harbor?
The impact associated with the data breach that was confirmed, the records that were taken out of the personal records, is what we would call on a severity scale a significant impact.
Significant impact. What does significant impact mean?
Meaning that the data, if it was correlated with other data sources, could be, severely, it could impact the environment as well as the individual.
Okay, I think it's helpful sometimes to define terms, particularly for those of us that are liberal arts majors and don't deal with this. What is a new or unanticipated threat or hazard? Mr. Hess?
That would be an indication of compromise of a system or a failure of any of the system protections.
Oh, so when Chairman Chaffetz was having a difficult time getting answered to that question because the focus was on the loss of personal information, that's really not what that phrase means. It's just a threat or hazard. It doesn't actually have to be a loss, does it?
Not the way that I would define it.
Me either. What about existing safeguards have ceased to function? What does that mean? Mr. Hess?
Sorry, it's pretty explanatory.
It did strike me as being self-explanatory. It did. Mr. Giannetta, is it self-explanatory to you? Existing safeguards have ceased to function?
Yes.
Now, here's the really tough question, and I'll let both of you weigh in on this one because it is tough. What does the word immediately mean?
Without delay.
Without delay. Mr. Giannetta, is there another meaning that you're familiar with?
I think that's a good definition.
All right, so you had both a contractual obligation with the government and there's a regulatory obligation that if new or unanticipated threats or hazards are discovered by either the government or the contractor, or if existing safeguards have ceased to function, the discoverer shall immediately bring the situation to the attention of the other part. Ms. Archuleta, I had heard this morning about a March 2014 data breach. Did I hear that right?
Yes, sir, you did.
And when did you bring that breach to the attention of either Mr. Hess or Mr. Giannetta? And you are welcome to turn on your microphone or else bring it closer to you.
I would have to get that information back to you. I don't have it in my notes. Perhaps Ms. Seymour would know, but if not, we'd get that information back to you.
Well, do you know if it was immediately?
I would expect that it was immediate.
Well, let's find out. Ms. Seymour, do you know?
No, sir, I don't. But I don't think that I certainly don't think that we immediately notified our contractors of a breach to our network, because at that time we did not have any question as to whether it was affecting them. It was to our network at that time.
Mr. Hess, Mr. Giannetta, is that your understanding that they were under no duty to bring that to your attention? Not all at once.
You both came in 2013.
At the end of 2013, yes, sir.
How long did it take you to buy equipment to start encrypting?
The tool
Simple answer.
June of 2014.
All right, so you bought equipment in June of 2014. So when did you start encrypting?
We have a couple of databases that are encrypted already, and we are...
A couple out of how many?
So we have numerous databases.
Well, and that's my point.
And so it takes time and it takes resources, and we have to test before we can just...
All right, Ms. Archuleta, let me come to you.
I take very seriously, as I said in my confirmation hearing and many other hearings after, including today.
But what about responsibility? Because I'll tell you what my constituents will tell me. They'll say, Ron, we have people mess up in the government all the time and nothing ever happens. And that's not the world that our constituents live in, where there's usually consequences. And so you're not committing that anybody will be fired or held accountable because of this, correct?
I am committing to you that we're going to do the best job we can.
Okay. Well, and I appreciate that, but that, quite frankly, is not something that I think the American people have confidence in right now, given what's happened.
I spent 9 years as an undercover officer in the CIA. I think I have a little bit of idea and perspective on this. If it was the Chinese, any federal official traveling to China, former official, someone there, is a subject of being targeted for elicitation of information about what's going on in the federal government. If it was the Russians, all this information is going to be sold and then used against them to drain people's bank accounts, to use this to create new access codes to get into private information. If it was narcotraficantes in Mexico, which have the capability of doing cyber attacks, it's the home addresses of men and women in Border Patrol, people that are keeping us safe. Right? So the threat is huge. The impact is fantastic. And one thing my dad always said was it never hurts to say you're sorry. And further in this letter it says, however, nothing in this letter should be construed as OPM or the U.S. government accepting liability for any of the matters covered by this letter or for any other purpose. Later it says, we regret this incident. I'm sorry actually goes a long way.
And if I sound passionate about it, I have to say that I am.
So I just, personal observation, sometimes you can feel passionate about things, but not be capable of doing what you desire to do. And I think we need to have a serious conversation. I know the chairman has these concerns about, to be perfectly honest, whether the current administration is competent enough to protect this information from people who would hack us. Thank you.
Gentleman yield.
Yep.
Gentleman yield. I think the gentleman gets to the point that I was trying to get to a little bit earlier. And the question becomes, we've got Mr. McFarland saying that, I think he used the word dangerous. Is that what you said?
That's correct.
We're heading down a dangerous path, is that?
I believe so.
And when you say dangerous, I mean, you're saying we're headed for some very serious trouble. Is that a fair definition of dangerous?
Absolutely.
So, Ms. Archuleta, our problem is this. We sit here and we've got an IG who we believe in and trust. The IG is saying that you need to take his advice, and what you're doing is not going to get us there. As a matter of fact, may harm us. Am I right, Mr. McFarland?
That's correct.
So you put us in a kind of difficult situation. We've now been given notice as members of Congress that we're headed down this path by somebody who we rely on. You disagree with them, but then you expect us to be supportive of you. No, listen to me. Okay. That's a problem. Because now you put us in a kind of bad position. So that means that if this happens again, problems get worse, then people say, well, wait a minute. Chaffetz, Cummings, you all were sitting there. You heard what the IG said. I mean, why'd you let this go on? That's the position that we find ourselves in. And so I don't care whether you like each other or not. That doesn't matter to me. Get along, a lot of people get along. The question is, it sounds like you are refusing. No, you answer me now. I'm gonna give you a chance to do what he's asked you to do because you disagree. But on the other hand, he's saying that we're going down a dangerous path. I mean, come on now.
I hold all of us responsible. That's our job at the OPM. We work very hard to do this, and we work with our partners across government. I know that you're perhaps tired of hearing this from me, but we're facing a very aggressive attacker. We protect against 10 million attempts each month. So we're working very hard to do that. We're working extremely hard to prevent the types of things that we're seeing here today.